But you're telling me that it's because you actually used funds to furnish an Airbnb for that 25K, and you didn't have to take money out of pocket, and then the return from the investment over a 12 or 18 month period would cash flow all of it a year and a half later with no money out of pocket. It's Wednesday, which means a new episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast. Guys, I'm your host, Ryan Deemer, as always, and I'm excited today. We have a different type of guest on than we normally bring in. He is a business owner. It's just not in the excavation industry. I've got actually a good friend of mine. His name is Brett Watts. He's from the Charlotte, North Carolina area. He was a marketing agency owner, sold his business for well over 7 figures, and then got into helping small businesses find financing and cash flow. So we're going to talk about what made a business successful for him to be able to exit it, so you guys can learn about systems, processes. You guys hear me rant about it all the time. And then we're going to discuss, I'm going to learn a ton today about financing and some unique ways that we can do that as business owners and getting away from just like the traditional walking into your bank and showing a business plan. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to Brett, but first I have to remind all of you that this show is brought to you by none other than Skid Steer Nation. Guys, your home for high quality, American-made skid steer attachments. The manufacturers we partner with, guess what? They're small business owners too, just like you. They put a lot of pride and a lot of quality in their attachments. These things will last you longer than the large corporate ones and help you make a better return on your investment. So as spring is ramping up, head over to skidsteernation.com to get all of your attachment needs so you can do better work for your clients. And lastly, Throttled Up Marketing, guys. As you know, we launched that in December. We've been rocking and rolling, helping businesses get better online presence, get more leads. If you're struggling with your business and you need help with marketing your brand and getting more customers to the door and developing your brand for your market, links in the show notes. Head over to Throttled Up Marketing, schedule a call. You'll talk to me. Worst case scenario, we spend 30 minutes and you learn something from taking the time to talk with me. So enough with these leads, these ads. So Brett Watts, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's always good to connect.
Yeah. I feel like we should start with a little bit of a backstory.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's probably almost been a decade now. I found this guy online. His name was Jeff Miller. He had this agency Scaling Secrets. They call it the ASK Group. And we were trying to learn online digital marketing. And you and I both were members of that group.
Oh yeah. Long time ago. Yeah. So been doing, digital marketing for, I guess a decade now. Thanks for reminding me. We also met kind of in person a couple times, just at other mastermind groups. I think one time maybe in Florida, another time in San Diego, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Man, it's always good to kind of, combine skill sets you can take from one industry and how do you apply it to another in order to have that grow or help other businesses do the same. So.
Yeah, so we met in Florida at, I think it was Robbie's Scaling Systems group. And it was just kind of like everyone's there to just consume or grow a business. So it's like, hey,
Sure.
How you doing? Great to see you. What are you up to? And all that. But the event we did in San Diego, it was like a men's retreat. It was a men's retreat for business owners, basically.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
We spent a lot of time on business, but we spent a lot of time on self-development too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's good to have a mix of both. So.
Yeah, and I feel like you and I, like meeting a few times, knowing of each other, but that group, that weekend there, when we get to spend some real time together, we developed a connection.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So again, like you're not in the excavation industry. I know you work with companies in trucking and similar type industries. With your business with Swiftline Capital, and you guys are helping these guys find cash to grow their business.
Yeah, the number one reason why most people don't either start a business or they can't grow their business is typically due to lack of capital, right? Whether it's your industry, whether it's real estate, whether it's anything, And so this is the way that I've been able to grow my real estate portfolio. It's been a way that I've been able to start numerous businesses without my own money. And most importantly, how do you do it without interest or unnecessary fees? And so we've been able to leverage business credit opportunities to, provide funding again, at 0% interest for 12 to 18 months. And so whether you need this for marketing, inventory, whether you need it for payroll, equipment, vehicles, you name it, it's been a really good way to just kind of help a lot of businesses either start or, get to the next level by investing into, the things that they may be missing otherwise.
Yeah. And I saw that you guys are also assisting business owners with credit repair services too, correct?
We do, yeah. That's not like our core offer. Like, we don't advertise it. You won't even see it on our website. Our job is to provide as much funding as possible. But if someone doesn't fit the credit profile, we don't necessarily want to just turn everybody away and say, well, we can't. So we do have some kind of transitionary periods that, hey, if you're here, yes, you may qualify, but it's probably not going to be for the amounts you'll be happy for. Can you give us 30 days or, sometimes 4 months, just depending on how banged up the credit is, right? And if so, it could be the difference in multiple tens of thousands of additional dollars in funding. So, it's not something we necessarily like push, but, we'll be transparent about it. Hey, based on your current situation, you might only be qualifying for $50K now, but if you give us a month, maybe we can double that. And so we do offer that just to, again, get the better results for the funding aspect of it.
Got it. How did you end up in this business after being in marketing and advertising for so long?
Yeah, I was looking for something that, number one, was kind of in the, we'll call it coaching. I mean, it's kind of consulting space. I just enjoy helping people. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy, having somebody come to us, here, and then how do we get them up to there? So I wanted something in the kind of coaching consulting industry. I wanted something with a really big TAM, right? Which is total addressable market, right? So in other words, how many people can you even market to, right? If you're going to work with, for example, I can literally work with any business in the United States. So who can I market to? It's big, right? So that's big. And then number two, what's a problem that most businesses have? It's lack of capital, right? So for us, just the amount of market size that we can tap into was really appealing to me. And then not only that, for the funding, this is something that I've done personally myself for numerous businesses and numerous real estate properties, because I'm a real estate investor. Even if you have the funds available, man, you try to buy a house, even with 20% down, it's a very easy way to, deplete a lot of your, cash on hand. And so I was able to tap into, 0% interest funding options to either fund, whether it be a down payment, renovation cost. I've got a few Airbnbs. And so, each Airbnb is like 20, 25 grand just for all the furniture. Right. So, any money that I'm making, it's just like, man, it's just going out the window. So, I wanted to find a better, smarter, easier way that, wasn't really depleting, a lot of my income that I was taking. And so, after doing this myself, not even knowing it was going to turn into a business venture, I just really kind of understood it. And, it just kind of made sense at the time. So sometimes the stars just align.
Yeah, because I think it was last summer, last fall, you and I were just catching up and talking, and you had not even started this yet. You were leaning this way, but you were telling me that it's because you actually used funds to furnish an Airbnb for that 20, 25K, and you didn't have to take money out of pocket, and then the return from the investment over a 12 or 18 month period would cash flow all of it, and then you're sitting pretty a year and a half later with no money out of pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was pretty unique and interesting. And it's always cool that when you solve your personal problem, you're like, hey, there's a business in this.
Someone else is probably in the same position. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, most of the guys that listen to this podcast, I'm going to guess it's 50, 60% started with a lawn tractor or a small utility tractor, and their friends started asking, hey, can you till this garden? Can you fix this driveway? And they're like, oh, shit, there's a business side in here. And next thing you know, they start buying bigger equipment, more equipment, and niching into the right services they want to go after. But it's a lot of them, they started with equipment to fix their stuff, and then people started asking them to use that equipment for their problems.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same path you took with this business.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. I kind of want to switch topics real quick and go back to your old marketing days. you had a partner, Nick, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you and Nick had a business. You guys worked primarily with med spas.
We did.
So it
Yes.
wasn't in the land service excavation business, but I mean, let's be honest. Marketing principles are marketing principles. They work in any industry as long as your message and your target is on point.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we worked exclusively with med spas, I had worked with landscapers, residential cleaning companies, carpet cleaners, dentists, chiropractors, Thai restaurants. I mean, you name it. And, like you said, it can apply everywhere. The only reason we decided to go all in on one industry is just due to the fact that we could scale faster, right? Every time we brought on a new customer in a new industry, new ads, new landing page, new sales scripts, everything had to be 100% custom, right? And eventually it's like, man, there's got to be an easier way of how can I grow faster? Because every time we got someone in a new industry, even if I had employees, right, I was the one who had to write the copy. I was the one to create the ads. I was the one to create the marketing funnel. I was the one to create the, email and text message nurturing sequences. So it was just so hard because I couldn't delegate it, right? Usually to delegate, you're training them on a process, right? An SOP, something that can be repeatable. And so, we just said, hey, what do we have the best results in? Let's just go all in on that. And we just happen to have a lot in this industry. I didn't necessarily pick it. It's not like to be honest with you, I'd never even been in a med spa, but we were getting them really good results. That's kind of why we chose that industry. It could have been anything, but at the time of it, that's what we kind of wanted to have. And as a result of that, we really kind of dominated that industry for a while. So when we wanted to go exit, it was so much more appealing from a new buyer because they didn't have to understand every single business that was out there. It's really just, hey, here's the SOPs, here's the systems, here's the most common ads, the offers, the marketing funnels, and obviously we had different ones for different treatments or services that our clients would have. But then it's just kind of rinse and repeat. Obviously, we would tweak it to customize it a little bit for each person, but the whole general scope was, overall pretty much the same concept. So it just was so much easier doing it that way.
And for us, when we started throttling marketing, it was like, let's stay in our niche. We already talk to this audience on a weekly basis. We're already doing work with this company, with these people, these industries. But it's getting the same thing, right? Like if somebody's in septic services in California, Texas, Illinois, North Carolina, all we got to change is the location specific things because septic pumping, septic repair, septic install, it's the same everywhere. And then we're able to take all that data that we can collect from numerous accounts and adjust all of them equally and improve the results as a whole, because we're not doing one on septic and then one in a barber shop and then one with the local restaurant.
Yeah, all that. Absolutely. Yeah.
But and this just goes, I think the lesson that's hidden in this, guys, is that if you're owning your own business, you've got to niche down, like figure out what you're really good at, because you can't do a septic system install and repair job as fast as a company that only does septic systems and repairs. You just can't do it. They're going to beat you night and day. They're going to make more profit. They're going to use less equipment time, less labor, less parts, because they've got a process and a system in there. So it's all about niching down and like finding that niche. We got one guy that's putting these Allen block retaining walls up for like sound dampening on municipality systems, and they're multi-million-dollar projects. But he's getting really, really good at them because that's all he's doing.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
So from your advice, from a marketing point of view, if you owned a different small business, like let's just stay in our niche, right? Like an excavation or landscaping, because you have a reference point on that. What are some key areas that you would focus on as a business owner, whether it be developing your brand or getting your message out there to a marketplace that you could do yourself?
Well, number one, I think every business needs to do marketing. I'm a big believer. I actually learned this from, I believe, Ravi, a guy that we know. I first learned this from him. Outflow equals inflow. You lack outflow, you will lack inflow. Meaning, you like pushing your name out, you will lack money coming in. And that just kind of clicked to me. And it's like the more phone calls you make, the more cold emails, the more text messages, the more ads, the more Instagram posts, the more LinkedIn posts. Like, don't do all of it, right? Just find one, maybe two channels that work the best and just go all in on that. And so the more times you get your name out, the more conversations you're having, the more offers you're able to make. The number one reason why most people can't grow a business in any industry, if I say, well, how many sales calls or how many conversations you have yesterday with potential customers? Well, I had one. Okay. So if your close rate is, let's just say 20%, just for easy numbers, right? You need 5 days just to maybe sell one person. Like, how do I have 5 conversations just before lunch? Like, that's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And so you can't just do that by just sending text messages or just posting on your Instagram or your Facebook. Social media is very powerful, but unless you've got a large following, especially posting on a business page organically, it's just not going to cut it.
I think we've got like 12,000 followers on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
And our reach is less than 500 when we post stuff on the business page.
Well, especially Facebook,
right.
It's a social network, right? You want to know when your friend got engaged. You want to know if your, girl you went to high school with is having a baby, right? Those are the things that it's going to be promoting. It's not going to be promoting all these sales that a plumber in an excavation company, like, that's not really what companies, people, if they're scrolling on social media, want to see, to be transparent with you, right? I'm a business owner too, so they don't want to see my stuff either. So it's kind of all of us. And so that's why every 5 scrolls, it's an ad, right? Now, you're either going to keep scrolling or you're going to say, let me read a little bit more about it. And what you've got to do is just catch the attention of them. And that's what I love about paid ads is, the targeting you can do on Facebook. If I'm going to be one of your companies, you're not going to be like me where I can service nationwide. You're going to want to say, hey, I'm willing to drive 20 minutes, maybe an hour, right? I don't know. Probably the also depends on the city, how populated it is, that's going to be a key factor. But what's nice about, paid advertising is you can target certain zip codes. You can exclude certain zip codes. You can target by household income. You can target by interest, by demographics, by job titles. You can put a radius around of like, what's your serviceable zone that you're willing to work and to drive. So then now you're automatically increasing the likelihood to show the right ad to the right people. And yes, some of those people may scroll. And that's kind of the thing with your industry is, most people are going to scroll, but that's okay. It's so cheap. You're paying pennies just to get an eyeball that what if it is every 100 people that sees and clicks and fills it out, or 1,000 people, right? It's so cheap just to get it seen by an eyeball that it doesn't take a whole lot, because I'd imagine the average job you're going to do is probably tens of thousands of dollars, right? So when you're talking return on investment, all I want to know is every dollar I put in, am I getting more dollars out? And that's really what it comes down to, and it may take some testing and tweaking and kind of changing some things, but I don't think there's an easier market than social media advertising to get the right ad to the right people, considering you can target job titles, you can target positions, demographics, income. It's just so easy to kind of narrow that down. If somebody likes certain, if they like Caterpillar, I don't know all the companies because, again, I'm not from this, right? But I know everyone knows that.
Right.
Trust me, my wife is not going to like that on Facebook, right? But there's a lot of people that do. Probably the guys that are in some form of construction, right? And maybe that's not the best example, but you get the idea behind it that, hey, if someone's interested in this business, they're probably in this thing, right? You can also target if there's like certain, again, they have to be large enough, can't be like a small one. But, if there's like a software that a lot of your customers use, you might be able to target it. If there's like a, machinery or equipment or a store that they go to, or, like what would your ideal customers like and follow? You can target them. So it just makes the marketing so much more effective. And, I really can't encourage it enough.
No, and there's 2 points I want to make real quick. One, for the guys listening out there that I feel like their head's spinning all this targeting talk. The best way to do that is like, look at the jobs you did last year. Figure out which ones you had the most fun with, who the easiest customers were to work with, you made the most money. And then look at the customer that hired you for that project, and look for the similarities they have and build your own buyer persona. So you can speak to one person, right? Like, were they in their 40s? Do they both, is it a dual income family? Do they live in a specific neighborhood, shop at a grocery store? Where do they get their pharmacy drugs? Because if you can start making that buyer persona, then you can target what that person looks like and let say, hey, Facebook, go find me 500 more of this person with your outcome.
Yeah. Another thing as well, at the start, you're probably going to want to do some yourself, considering maybe the budget or maybe, whatever else it may be from there. I think it's good to have a good understanding of marketing, no matter the industry, whether you're doing it or not. Another thing I think is, where's your time best spent, right? I try to think of, okay, if you have, let's just say 8 hours in a day, what's going to bring the most amount of revenue from my time that I can use to grow? If you're the owner, you probably have the best close rate compared to hiring on, new people to go speak with everyone. So really, unless you just absolutely hate sales, I mean, first off, whether you get mad at this or not, I don't think you should be in business if you do hate sales. Otherwise partner with someone who does have a passion for it. But ultimately, every business needs to thrive. And without having sales, you're lacking the capital to and grow your company, whether it's team, better machinery, equipment, trucks. So it's actually a disservice to not sell more, because the more resources and capital you have, you can invest in your own company in order to provide a much better service and product, right. Which ultimately, kind of goes around, right? So another thing as well that I was kind of, alluding to is, where's your time best spent? If yours is sales, you need to be talking with people. So if that means that instead of you spending 2 hours a day trying to figure out how to create an ad, you should just delegate that. And what better way to delegate it than someone that knows your industry? Not to even push Ryan here, but like, he's been in this industry so long, right? So it kind of just makes natural sense. For us, I didn't start my marketing agency when I had it, just servicing one industry. We just got really good results for it. And the next thing you know, we had ended up serving, 1,000 different clinics across the US. So, when somebody is thinking, should I work with me, Brett, or this other guy who works with, dentists and chiros and excavation companies and this and that, like, are they really going to understand, what they are looking for and their problems and challenges, versus find a guy who knows it. I don't know anybody else in this industry, not saying they're not out there, but, you want to find someone that understands, the market, the problems, the challenges, just because the likelihood of success and the decreased amount of time of testing that it's going to take. It's like, yeah, could you figure it out on our own? Yeah, absolutely. You go through the YouTube rabbit hole, you can find anything in any industry and any problem, I promise you. The thing is, do I want to spend 20 hours trying to figure it out, or would I rather just pay somebody to kind of do it from there? And so that's why a lot of companies would hire us.
Selling my business.
Yeah, because I could get them result. We would get leads within 24 hours, right? Sometimes like 6 hours, right? And so it's very quick because we had a proven process, and that's kind of the benefit of just outsourcing the thing. When again, if those leads bring you conversations, and your highest revenue activity is going to be having conversations with potential customers, like, that's where your time needs to be, not tinkering, what should the targeting and demographics be. Just my opinion. But again, if you've got a team and you've got, guys, and you're wanting to learn that, yeah, it's a great skill set that you can do yourself just by going through YouTube and kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, you can. And, it's kind of goes back to, if you look at the journey you're on as a business owner as a bridge, right? You're here, you want to get over to the right. How long is that bridge? How long does it take to cross it? And when you can start delegating and like building a team, whether it's actual employees or finding partner companies to help do part of your jobs that need to be done, you can shorten that bridge. And I think that was the reason that you brought up Robbie earlier, right? Like, what I did with Robbie as a mentor and a coach when I'm with Skid Steer Nation, and the results we got in a 6-month period would have taken me 18 to 24 months to do it on my own without that guidance and that structure he provided for me.
Yeah, big time.
So like even with a marketing company, again, like is it going to take you 6 months or a year to figure it out, and then you got to keep adding more time to your day to do that, or can you just shorten that bridge and say, hey, you do it, and then we can start getting the results we want in 6 hours, 6 days, 6 weeks, whatever it is, depending on where you're at in that journey versus a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and then the other time, I mean, we're staying on marketing, but you were talking about how cheap it was to get eyeballs on social media ads. And it always reminded me, and this was before Facebook got big, and I hate saying that because it just dates how old I am. But when I owned the bar in the early 2000s, like we worked with a radio station, we did a ton of radio ads. And the radio station rep told me, he's like, it takes somebody 13 times to hear a message before they remember it. And I would almost guess that with all of the distractions and social media sites and everything we have access to today that we didn't have then, I'm going to guess that number's probably even higher.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I read that study about we have an attention span that's shorter than a goldfish, which is 7 seconds.
Unfortunately, I probably believe that too.
Yeah. But again, like, you know, and that's one of the things we talked about with when you're writing ad copy. 1 or 2 sentences, space, make the paragraphs really small, because if it's just one big long block of text, because our attention spans are so short, nobody's going to read it.
Well, I think it's we're lazy.
Right.
I don't want to read a big paragraph. I'll be honest with you.
But I'll read a shitload of short ones.
Yeah, big time. I'll skim them. Oh, this looks interesting. Mm-hmm. Then I'll read more, right? You got to kind of hook them in. Yeah, I agree. I think it's attention span, but also laziness.
Yeah. We are. I mean, I think we're lazy by nature on average.
Yeah, I mean, you should be. In a way, right? That's, I mean, think about how much time you would have to waste if you had to read, you know, giant articles just to kind of get something. It's like, no, I'm going to Google. That's why I love about the Google, what's it called? What do they call it? Gemini or something? The AI overview on Google. Man, you just search something, it just pops up, gives an overview, you know, and then if I want to go deeper into it, then I can click some blogs and forums and articles, right? But man, that has just been, you know, finding an answer, talk about quick and easy. And I mean, that's just been like, I think one of the best new things for the internet is, you know, Google's kind of AI, you know, scope of summary of here's a accurate answer of everything that they just found in 100 articles into 3 sentences.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. The only downfall of the access we have to information, in my opinion, is that it's ruined the fun conversations when you're out with friends trying to figure out, like, what year did that team win the Super Bowl? Who was the starting MVP? Like that was a 30-minute discussion of just your friends like chatting about something and like, oh, was that the Peyton Manning year? Like, no, I think that was Tom Brady. And now somebody just pulls their phone out and like, oh, it was this guy. And you're like,
yeah,
dude, now what are we going to talk about? Like that was the topic we were going to burn 30 minutes on. Now we just root.
Yeah, sure.
But so yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about real quick with the marketing company, then I want to switch over to the finance side of things. But how important was building structure on the back end for you and your team, not only to be able to get results for your clients quickly, but just to give you a great overview of your business as an owner so you weren't living in the chaos every day?
You know, I think it's interesting. You know, most people escape the 9 to 5 to get out of, you know, what they call the rat race, right? What's ironic about it is like, let's just say that a 9 to 5 is 40 hours a week, right? When you start your own business, man, you're going up there to 50 to 60 hours a week. But the time and, you know, in my opinion, the whether it's enjoyment or passion or just I'm down to put in 60 hours if it's for myself, right? You kind of have a different perspective on whose hours is it going towards. But eventually over time, you know, at the start of that, like, you know, I've started a couple businesses, you know, and at the start, man, it can be, you're kind of on a high, you're excited, everything's new. But once you get to a year, you get to 2 years, you get to 3 years, still putting in the 60 hours, it gets old. gets old real quick, right? And so what's ironic is we escape the 9 to 5 to get into a, 5 to 8, right? Even longer, where we ultimately, it almost like enslaves us in a way, right? It's hard to turn off. It's hard to, trust was a big thing for me. I think it is for a lot of people to kind of delegate. Well, no one can do it like me. That's full of shit. I don't care who you are, right? The way that I kind of look at it is maybe no one can do it as good as me, but what if I could have somebody do it 80% as good as me?
100%.
And if I can have somebody do marketing 80% as good as me, and then maybe call the leads 80% as good as me, then maybe go meet them face to face 80% as good as me. And then maybe someone who covers the billing and the finance and the invoice and the operations and the emails and the social media 80% as good as me. Now, I've basically fractioned out every department. Sure, maybe it's not 100%, but it doesn't actually have to be. Sure, I'm probably the highest close rate on my team. I'm the owner. It'd be shocked if I wasn't, right? But again, if I can delegate 80% now, I don't have to go drive to all these customers' homes every day. Then if I can delegate the marketing, well, hey, that's an hour a day. Then if I could delegate, invoicing and payments and touching base and rescheduling and answering the phones, well, that's another 4 hours a day. So now what actually happens from that is, what is the reason you got into it in the first place? You probably wanted to be on your own clock, but by working overtime, you're not able to. When's the last time you've been on a vacation? Right? When's the last time that you just said, you know what, let's take the kids to the park at 3 p.m. today? Like, that's the reason why most people want to be into business. But what's ironic is most people can't actually do that. And the only way to do that is to buy back your time. And that's through systems, people, and processes. And that's how, like I'm going to meet a guy here immediately once I hang up with you. It's 4:00, not super early, right? But we're going to grab a beer and we're going to do some networking. He's in real estate. I work with a lot of investors, and it's still business kind of related, but like I have the ability to go, we're going to go shoot darts, have a beer, and just, we're talking business, right? We're thinking ways we can refer each other business, right? But, most people don't have that kind of flexibility. And I'm not saying I do that every day, but if I wanted to, I could, because I now have, people that do sales 80% as good as me. I still do our marketing because I come from world of marketing. Honestly, I just kind of enjoy it, but I also am faster, and right. So there are some things that if you enjoy it, hey, doesn't mean you got to delegate it, right? I just enjoy marketing. I'm a marketing
and that's one of the
major,
things that, so, and just to play off that, Brett, like find your zone of genius. I think that's what John Lee Dumas calls it, right? And double down on that, and then outsource everything else. Like if you're really good at one thing, find a way to spend more time in that one thing and less time doing the other work.
Yeah. To give you reference, last month we were 14x ROAS on front end sales. For those of you who maybe don't know, marketing, that's return on ad spend. So for every $1 I spent on ads, I made 14 back just off initial front end sales. Keep in mind, probably half those people do payment plans, right? So now that 14x, if I take the lifetime value of it, we're probably talking 30. So 30. Again, where is my time to grow my company most valuable to be spent?
Finding more ways to put that dollar bill in the marketplace.
Probably instead of how do I spend $1, how do I spend $10? Right. So then now I just hire more sales reps that can actually handle the volume. I'm not, again, I was doing the calls, I was doing the door knocking, I was doing, the marketing and the sales and the customer relations and replying to the email and, as they say, the janitor and this and that. And that's okay. You kind of have to do each of those to learn it so you can delegate it and hire someone for it. But that's part of the process. But eventually you gotta let go.
Right. Yeah, the old 80-20 rules, it's probably the most powerful rule if you can start embracing it and using it in all aspects of your life, right? Like 80% of something is 100% awesome if you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever perfect. So the 100% is never going to happen anyway. But, like if you worked out 80% of the time, most people get disappointed and frustrated that they didn't get 5 days a week. They only got 3 or 4. So then they quit. Or they only dieted 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week. So they quit. Just imagine if you maintain that 80% success rate, where you would be in any area of your life.
Sure.
I just think we have these unachievable standards in our head, and we set ourselves up for failure, whether it be in business, in life, relationships. And we're too hard on ourselves. They always say that like people are always disappointed in others. It's because the expectations we set for them in our own mind are unachievable, and we're always going to be disappointed by the actions of others.
Yeah, not big time.
Yeah. So I've learned for a majority of people in my life, not my employees, but a lot of other people, my expectations are like 0. Like I'm excited when I get something or they do something. So to flip the script of now I'm like, oh, it's so awesome. He did that. Cool. I don't have to do it. But I never had an expectation of him doing it because I would have been pissed off if he did.
Yeah.
Like if you and I were going to go play darts, I would have no expectations of how good you would be at it. I'd be excited if you were.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Touche.
Instead of going, oh, sweet, Brett's going to be awesome. Yeah. We used to play a lot of darts. Like when I owned the bar business, I played Dart League 3 nights a week.
Yeah, I had a dartboard at my old house in Colorado. I left it there. It was, yeah, it's been 2 years since I played. So
yeah,
we'll
during
see.
COVID, I actually bought a dartboard from a vending company that supplied it to bars and restaurants, and we had it in the basement, like the big full arachnid with the lights. I thought people would come hang out because there was no bars open, and it would just be me and Tracy. And Tracy's interest in darts wandered at about 7 days into the project. So then it was just me in the basement. I'm like, this is boring.
Yeah.
You only play darts with yourself. I had to make sure I said darts. I almost didn't. Only play with yourself enough until you get tired of it. But let's dig into your financing business, because I think this is an area that, one, I can learn a lot, and that these guys out there listening can learn a lot and maybe even help them grow and scale their business in 2025. So what I know is that you find unique solutions to help people with capital, whether it be 0 interest, low interest. And really that's kind of where it ends as far as my knowledge base went. I did that on purpose because I wanted you to educate me on this call. So like walk me through what an average, just walk me through your company, your process, and what businesses can expect if they were to work with you.
Yeah, ultimately, we try to find creative ways to provide funding, and preferably with lower fees or lower interest rates in order to, again, either start your business or, grow it, take it to the next level. So whether this is for marketing, for payroll, for vehicles, for machinery, for skid rows, like whatever it may be, right? Imagine what it would be like if you had, the machine to kind of now take on another service. And if that one service can pay for, and that's the thing about a lot of these machines is you can finance them. You can have payment plans, or you can rent them and then obviously make money from there. But imagine if you, instead of just renting it, because I imagine a lot of people in your industry, they may just rent it and then take that to the job sites. But what if you could finance it with 0% interest, use it every time you have it, and then rent it out to another friend that has a similar company, and you're making profit off of that as well? Like, that seems like the biggest, like a good opportunity for that. And so what we do is, our most popular product is actually going to be credit cards. You probably laugh like, well, why would I hire you to get a credit card? I could just go apply online myself. And the short answer is you could, right? Depending on how much you need. If you need $30K and you got a great credit score, like I would say you don't need me. Just go online, go to Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whoever, and get a card. And that's all that you need. It's really when you need 100K, 200K, that's where a lot more kind of strategy comes involved. And that's why most people hire us, because I can get significantly higher than someone else could on their own. How the process typically works is we do a quick survey or even sometimes a soft pull. We take a look and our software tells us roughly how much they can get. Now, what's cool about that is I can take a look at everything and I know exactly what the underwriters not only need, but require to get you not only approved, but approved for high limits. And then there's only a few things they're looking at. What's the credit score? What's your utilization? What's your agent history? How many inquiries you have? Do you have any lates, negatives, collections? Anything like that could be bringing it down. And then sometimes someone comes to us and we're like, hey, man, I can get you introduced to a banker basically tomorrow. Other times, we might need, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or, sometimes at the max 4 months to, kind of remove some of these things because it's going to negatively impact them. But if waiting a month could be the difference in another $50,000, like, is it worth it? You tell me. Depends on what you need in the first place. And so what we have noticed by, like last month alone, we funded about $2 million just on the credit cards. We can do personal loans, lines of credit, things like that as well. But with the credit cards, it's 0% interest. Hard to argue with that, right? It's not forever, obviously, right? It's usually going to be for 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. Could be outside of that range, either shorter or higher, but that's going to be we're most of the ones that we're kind of playing with. It's business credit. So, I don't know how much you know about credit, but if you max out a personal credit card, that's called high utilization, right? Having high utilization, AKA credit card balances on your personal cards, can actually lower your credit score. So rule of thumb, you want to stay at 30% usage or less. Doesn't mean you can't max it out 1 month and pay it off. Hey, that's cool. But you don't want to keep it that way. Okay. As in keeping it high and maxing those cards out every month. Even if you're paying it off every month, if you're maxing out every month, it can have a little bit of an effect on it. And so with business credit, it doesn't have any negative impact to your personal credit score. You can max out the cards. It's a different entity. It's not going off of, the utilization doesn't impact it. So that's another really big benefit. Another thing, it's revolving line of credit. How cool would it be not just to get a loan and, use it and pay it back and never be able to touch it again? But what if you could use it, pay it back, use it, pay it back, and kind of keep recycling that process? And so that's, as I'm sure everybody has had a credit card in some form, or at least, know the process. If you got $100,000 limit for that and you buy a $70,000, machine or truck or whatever it may be, you're able to have 0%. So if you need 6 months to get a big job done to pay it off, and you still have another year left on that, well, you can keep pulling from that, right? And so that's a good way to be able to grow. And then if you kind of get to the end and you haven't been able to pay it off, there are some tricks. You can go 1 to 4 years with one LLC with 0% interest the whole time. The only caveat is, let's just say, for easy example, you got $100,000 on a credit card. Month 12 is coming to an end, meaning the 0% time is starting to run out. Well, if that happens, you're going to have APR. It's probably going to shoot up to 18 to 25%, pretty high, right? So to avoid that, what you can do is just apply for another business 0% credit card and do what's called a balance transfer. All that means is you transfer the debt off the current card onto the new one. Now, this does two things. Number one, it avoids the 25% APR, interest. And number two, it basically acts as an extension. It gives you another 12 months, 15 months, 18 months all over again. So that's why I said, if you play it right, you can sometimes go 4 years with no interest the entire time. The only caveat is sometimes to do a balance transfer, there might be a balance transfer fee of 3%. But when you compare it to 25%, you can't even, it's not even comparable. It's just a no-brainer.
It's apples to oranges, yeah.
Yeah. There are some credit cards that offer no balance transfer fees. The best case scenario, you get one and it's free to just transfer it over. It doesn't happen all the time, so I say just expect 3%. But you could Google what 0% business credit cards offer no balance transfer fees. You can find one or two. Not a ton of them out there, but there are some. And credit cards are always changing promotions, right? 1 month it might be spend 3,000, get 100,000 points. The next month it might be do this and get this, right? So you just kind of keep up with it. But you could Google it, and I like NerdWallet or the Points Guy. Every month there's a new blog on best 0% credit cards out this month. or best travel cards right now, or best cashback cards right now. They all have different perks. And I'm a big travel guy as well. So like my wife and I, we don't pay for flights. All the money that we're spending on points. Yeah. Amex, Chase, we've got numerous, cards. We travel free by using the points for these credit cards. So not only are you getting no interest, but you're actually getting points for it. So take your family on that vacation we talked about,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works.
The little hack I learned with the Amex is that if you actually use Amex Travel to book the flight, they reimburse you 30% of your points back the next month. So if the flight was 50,000 points for the flights, then you'll get 15,000 points back on the next month because you use their service to book it.
I think it's Capital One, could be Chase. If you book on their travel site, you get 10x points.
10x?
Yeah. I think it's Capital One. Yeah. I've got several cards. Sometimes I have to look and see which one is which again. But so that's one thing. It's number one, understanding your profile. You want to be at 30% credit card utilization or less. Ideally, in a perfect world, 720 credit score or higher. Can you have lower? Everything I'm saying, it's not a hard black or white. You can be outside of that. I'm just saying for best results. Okay.
Right.
Ideally, you don't want to have 20 inquiries, in the last 2 years, right? So if you do, just hire a credit repair company. They'll get that off in 30 days. That's going to increase your likelihood of, getting higher limits. If you have any late payments, collections, anything like that, hire a credit repair company to dispute it. It's not a whole lot. Spend a few $100, get that taken care of. It's going to boost your score up significantly. And then the other thing, kind of the trick that, the other, I guess, benefit that we have is just because of how much funding we have relationships with all these banks, both regional and national. And so if you go apply online, what's interesting about it, it's actually optimizing for speed of approval. Boom, you've been approved, right? Immediately. Pretty cool, actually. The problem is it's not. Do you think that a formula is going to know within 3 seconds whether you should have been approved for 20K or maybe 70K?
Right.
Is it really looking that deep? Not really. Actually, I tell you it's not, right? And so what you really want to do, if you already have business accounts, you want to go through your business banker. If you don't have them, that's kind of the benefit that we have is we've got relationships with almost all the banks. And so we will introduce you through our banker. See, when you apply online for a credit card, there's no field anywhere or question, how much would you like to request? So what's your social, what's your address, what's your name? Never ask you how much you'd like to have. When you go through a banker, their side of the screen, they can request $75,000 on a brand new business credit card with no sales, no income, no tax returns. Now, it doesn't mean you always get it, depending on your credit profile, but they may counter and say, hey, I'm not going to give you 75, but I'll give you 50.
Right.
But if you would apply it online, you probably would have gotten, 10 to 20?
Right.
So you can usually get 3 to 5 times higher just by going through. And that's kind of the value that, we will often, and it's not just us, you don't have to go with us, right? If you have your own bankers, more of the story, just go through that. It's not always just walking into the bank. There is a difference. A lot of them, when they're like, yeah, I can work with business bankers, that's not really the person who has the power. So there are certain people within it that ultimately you kind of want to try to speak to. But if you've been established for a while in business, you might already have one. The difference is, do you have one with multiple banks? Because most people just bank with one. Like my business accounts with Chase. I don't have relationships. It would be unnecessary to have relationships with, 8 different banks. It's like, why would you? That's just keeping up with all those passwords and usernames. I don't want to do that.
No,
and so that's kind of the thing that we can do, or any real funding company, is they'll give you the leverage to use their bankers to actually go through them, and the bankers will actually submit the application on your behalf. So you can get 3 to 5 times higher limits just by going through them.
That's wild to me, and if you think about it, most businesses that are looking for this capital investment gauge or like a little bridge loan, I mean, most of the companies I work with or talk to on a regular basis, 12 to 18 months isn't, an outstretch. Maybe if they're buying like a skid steer or an excavator, 18 months is a little short. You might have to do that process again. But I think most of them are paying double payments and trying to get that thing paid off in, 1 to 3 years. So, changing your mindset that you don't have to do a traditional loan, because at the end of the day, there's no title on that equipment anyway. It's a UCC filing. When you go through a bank.
Yeah.
And so
what's
being
cool
able to
about
look
this,
outside the box
yeah.
and have somebody like you guide you through a process saying, hey, here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's your 36-month plan, and then you'll be able to have $150,000 in assets owned outright with minimal, if no interest at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Pretty
really
genius.
no interest. Yeah.
Pretty genius. Yeah, we'll probably chat offline a little bit because I could think of some unique things I could use some money for.
It's how I funded this company. It's how I funded my Airbnbs. It's how I funded my marketing company. It's like, even if I have the money, if I can get it someone else's money with no interest, like, why would I even want to use my money?
Yeah, I'd even get to pay 3% balance transfer. I'd still do it.
Well, that's only every year to year and a half you got to do that.
Yeah. But I mean, just so the smart money understands what the cost of money is and looks at money as a tool, not something to hoard. I can't tell you back in, I got what year was that? 2000, 99, 2000. And the interest rates for mortgages was pretty low and the stock market was on fire. I can't tell you how many people over the age of 50 were refinancing a fully paid off house for 80% of value and paying 3% interest on the mortgage and then investing every single dollar into their stock accounts and averaging 10, 11, 12% return on investment because they understood that money wasn't, it's just a tool to generate more money.
Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the mindset shift. Did you have to go through a mindset shift of understanding that with money? And were you ever like a cash hoarder, or like what? How did you end up looking at money as a tool the way you do today?
I'm always in some form of like mastermind or community, or just like personal growth and development. I was actually at the Aspire tour. I don't know if you've heard of Aspire. It's like one of the largest business tours that's probably out there. I went to their initial one. It had like David Goggins and Ed Milet, Cody Sanchez, Pace Morby, David Meltzer, like all speakers. And then I signed up for 2 other events they had in Charlotte. One was for real estate and private money lending. And then the other was actually for a wealth conference. And it was actually pretty interesting that, he was like, what's another word for money? Like, you probably know, like, what else would you call money? Well, I'll just say currency.
Currency, yeah.
Right. Well, what does current originate from? Or currency, current. Well, in order to be a current, what has to be happening? Movement. Right. So they were basically just talking like your money should always be moving in some. He's like, even the real wealthy, like they're not just sitting there. They're probably private money. They're probably throwing some into stocks, some into real estate, some into businesses, some into private money lending, and they're just constantly doing it. Because even when you go to a bank and you say, hey, here's $10,000 in a checking account, dude, that money's not sitting there. Within seconds, probably. They've already dished that out to someone else for a loan. Now, you're backed up by the federal government to make sure that, you are protected, right? But they're not just sitting there. And that's why oftentimes if you say, hey, I need to pull out, $500,000, like, dude, they don't have that money ready right when you walk in the door. They just moved. They're like, well, hey, I got $2 million. I'm just throwing out numbers, right? I don't actually have $2 million in my checking account. But if you're like, hey, what happened? I got $2 million in my account. You should be able to give me $5 million. It's like, no, they moved your money before you even walked out the door.
Right.
And so I think that's just an interesting
they do
perspective.
not need to have it in the safe.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's just, And to be transparent, like man, I'm still trying to figure out, best ways to use money. Like I don't have that necessarily figured out. I've got marketing figured out, and I know how to kind of make a little bit. But those are still things that I'm still improving on, and trying to figure out the best ways to make the most out of it and stretch my dollar the most that I can. I think the thing that I've gotten really good at is delegation. Honing in on my zone of genius. And then delegating what either I don't like, I don't enjoy, or I'm just not good at, or maybe it's just not worth my time. If like it's not worth me sending 100 emails a day. We don't do that anymore in my last company. I mean, we were sending 1,000 emails a day. To companies across. Is it worth me doing that? No, it's worth me being on the phone, positioning. Here's what we do. Here's how we can help you. Right. And so whatever that ultimately is, I think that's what I'm good at. It's just understanding what do I either enjoy or I'm good at. And then really just very quickly delegating the best, even if someone else starts out at 50% of what I do, because I know if I just train them here and there, I'll get them to that 80%. And ultimately, if they can hit 80% of me, that's or sometimes 120% of me, if it's something I'm not good at.
Yeah, and think about it as like, the economy of scale. If you do that with a salesperson, especially with an online business like what you're doing, it's different than a local business. But like even an HVAC company, right? Like if you had one salesman that's 80% as good as the owner, but then you hire a second and a third and a fourth.
Yeah.
Right? You have 4x 80% versus 1x 100%.
Yeah, boom.
I think it was Rockefeller that said I'd rather have 1% of 100 people than 100% of one person.
Yeah.
But, man, my head's spinning right now in a good way.
Yeah, it's a good rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, it sure is. I think money's one of those things that our parents, most parents did a terrible job teaching us as children. Our schools totally missed the boat on educating us on it. And it's something that even as it's a little taboo, right? Like you don't like talking about how much you do or don't have. So all of a sudden we've put ourselves in a bubble. And where do we learn to be better with it or how to utilize it better or improve our use of it? Because we just have no reference point when it comes to money on average.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Man, if you guys are interested in learning more and trying to expand your business, we're going to put the link to Brett's business in the show notes. It's Swift Flying Capital. Make sure you make a note that you heard it from the podcast. Maybe you'll actually get him to delegate himself to take your call since you came from the podcast. But, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, real quick, I'll just say, just because I know we're wrapping up here as well, we're also getting into private money lending. So, I don't know if this would work for like buying machines, but if someone's trying to like buy land, multifamily, single family, anything from there, keep us in mind as well.
Well, that's a big thing to talk about because there's a lot of contractors that I work with that will buy property to clear it, develop it, whatever. Yeah. So that they can then turn it, they can do all the work on the property to improve it, enhance it, and then sell it for a profit or, partner with a home builder. So a lot of guys put their hands into real estate as they go through the land service industries. So
yeah, that I can absolutely help with. You need 100,000 or you need 20 million. We can get you taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a quick short story to wrap up. And this is the shit that blows my mind. I love talking to people on this podcast. This guy down in Florida, I want to say he was in Florida, bought this lot because he could put a billboard for his business on it. It was a high traffic area. And everyone said he overpaid for the lot because the lot next door had been sitting for 3 years for sale. Nobody had offered to buy it. And I think he paid $55,000 for the lot. He went to the neighbor that owned that lot and said, "Hey, I saw you've been had that for sale for years for, 60, 70 grand and nobody's ever talked to you." He goes, "What if I came in, cleared it, did all the land clearing to make the lot usable? People could then see the value of it and you don't have to pay me until you sell the lot." The guy ended up selling his lot for like $90,000. So now this $55,000 lot, which has a billboard to represent his business just almost doubled in value because he saw the value. Hey, if we make the land usable and he can sell for a higher value, it automatically increases the value. It was just like the way his mind thought through that process. Again, using money as a currency.
Yeah.
Pretty neat stuff, man.
Yeah. There's always an opportunity. It's just whether you see it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't thank you enough for taking time out. I know you got a crazy busy schedule. We were talking about it before the show got started, how we're just been bouncing from one thing to the next. Seems like almost every day, but it's the one thing about owning a business that I love too, right? We can complain that we're too busy, but at the end of the day, you sat like in San Diego, you weren't working at all. You just sold your business and you were kind of doing a hiatus period.
I hated it.
And you start to go stir crazy real quick, don't you?
Yeah, hated it. Darkest time of my life, not having anything to do.
Yeah, it's no purpose, man.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. So, well, man, I wish we'd had some time to like scratch into like self-development and like finding ways to improve as individuals. But I really think like the topic of marketing and understanding delegation and systemizing your business so that you can free up yourself to be where you need to be, and then getting educated on money and currency and all the unique ways that we can utilize it as business owners to help us grow and scale our businesses. I wouldn't have changed the thing we talked about today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really enjoyed it. Hope everyone else did as well.
Yeah. Again, guys, reach out. I'm going to link his business in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning more about how money can work for you instead of you working for money, reach out to Brett. Perfect. On that note, guys, keep grinding, keep working, keep systemizing your business, keep growing. It's why we got into this in the first place. We didn't want to have a job. So actually build a business, go learn how to do it. If you need help with that, we offer marketing services through marketing. I also do consulting with Groundbreaking Growth. So just reach out. We've got resources, guys like Brett, whether it be that or any area. We've got a pretty vast, large network to help you guys grow your business. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.